Hi there, thank you so much for grabbing the book. I'm Leanne Hughes, and this is video one of the bonus content of the book. And this is really about, I guess, the secret to all about designing fast is how do you create a framework to underpin your workshop content. So in terms of the book, if you haven't actually started yet and you're watching the videos first, that's totally fine and probably a good idea actually, because this will put into perspective the value, because it really just speeds up everything related to your workshop content. What do I mean by that? I think having a framework that you use in your workshop is good for two key reasons. One, in terms of the speed of your design, which we'll talk about in the book, but also it makes what you're sharing just so much more memorable if you package it up. Now, the thing that got me past frameworks, because for a while there I was thinking, but I'm not the expert. How do I create a framework? But what I think about frameworks now is that it's actually just a way for you to package up content so it is more memorable. But it's also a way for you to package up content so that you can design a lot faster. And I'll tell you what, this has been like the key to unlocking everything for me. What I want to give you the example of is something that I talk about in Booked Out Facilitator. The framework that I use in that program is that you need to do these three things to be a Booked Out Facilitator. You need to be good at what you do, so your craft is great. You need to build up your relationships and your network and invest in them and stay on the radar, which is your connection bucket. And you also need to be sharing your ideas publicly, which is the content component, right? So there's three buckets here. Now, if I was to run a 2-hour workshop on the Booked Out Facilitator framework, this is how it relates to Power Up, which is the first step. The first question I would use as the icebreaker is I'd explain these three buckets and I'd ask the question as an opening question, which of these buckets is consuming you most right now? Or which of the buckets are you most invested in? Or draw these three buckets and I want you to actually map how full is your bucket across each three. Then I want you to turn to the person next to you and share which one is most full for you right now and which bucket requires a bit more attention. So what I love about this activity, right? So all I've done is created a framework, but I've got like 5 different icebreaker and opening activities I can use that are directly related to the content. That's the power of a framework. Okay, now activities. In the book, in the 2-hour workshop blueprint, I talk about segmenting, so providing like about 25 minutes for each of them. So that makes it really simple then. Craft, I'll spend 25 minutes on that, design an activity around that. Connection, there's another 25 minutes. And content, another 25. So for each of these, then I'll plan what associated activities and content will be most useful. But also the value of the check-in is that if there's a common theme, if everyone's saying we really need to focus on content, then you've got the space to be able to kick off with that or even expand what that is, right? This is the value of having the framework as a check-in question as it provides that context. By the way, so if you're a bit overwhelmed with these phrases, like what is Power Up, what are the activities you're talking about? It's all part of an overall framework that you'll learn about in the book. So in this example, what I'm just sharing is that I've created this framework around 3 buckets. That's helped me power up. It's provided a framework for how I'm going to allocate time and energy and attention during the session. It's also very memorable for the group. So when they walk out, they'll think, oh yeah, so there's 3 key things I need to focus on to booking out are content, connection, and the craft. And also gives them some guidance in terms of where they need to invest more of their energy in the next 90 days in order to book out. Then it also impacts your review. So like the reflection part at the end of your workshop, because then you can start asking, hey, which of these buckets will you focus on and what are 2 actions that you'll take as a result, right? So by having one framework, we've got our icebreaker and check-in question and powered the group up. We've got our framework across the agenda for the activities. And we've also got our review and reflection question, which is really against the framework and it reinforces itself, making it more memorable. So that's the power of it. So how do you create one? In chapter 5 of this, we go into depth in terms of these different processes, but just at a high level. I think there's 2 different types of workshop hosts. So if you're a subject matter expert, if you're the expert on this topic, you are digging your brain. You want to excavate the information you have and put it into a framework, okay? Because you've already got the knowledge there. It's like, how do I put this in a way that's memorable? How do I package it up in a way that will resonate with the group in a 2-hour workshop? And in the book, I ask for you to think of 3 key things. And we'll go into that in a moment. The other type is curation. Now, this is where I think it takes a little bit longer to design because not only are you digging, you're having to do a bit of research. When I've had guests on the First Time Facilitator podcast, they're kind of in one of these two camps. So one is, I'm an expert, I can design my workshop in an hour or the morning of or the night before, just on the back of a paper napkin, because all they're doing is excavating it and getting it out there and mapping it out. The curation part, if you're not an expert and you're having to design something, there's that trap of going to Google and, just trying to find everything on the topic. What I'd suggest though is, if you can, sometimes I think it's a bit of a mindset shift that maybe you don't think you're the expert, or maybe you don't think you have enough about the topic. However, if you've been asked to deliver this, I'd actually invite you to sit with the idea and the question. If it's about time management, if it's about leadership, if it's about communication or conflict. But the question I'd like to ask you is, when it comes to getting the result that your workshop is for, so if it's to free up more time for leaders, if it's to teach, if it's to share your skills, if it's to help leaders delegate better. The question I have for you is, what are the 3 most important things that someone needs to do or think about or consider to get that result? And that's a question I ask you right now. Before you even start Googling things, just sit with that question. I want you to start, if you've got 3 things, just map it out, write it down. If you've got 10 things, just write it down. That's fine as well. So these are the 3 key things that you'll then turn into your framework. And that was all it took for Booked Out Facilitate. I just asked myself, okay, I'm reflecting on my business and the growth, and what are the 3 most important things that I've done? And I thought, well, yeah, podcasts, that was part of the content strategy. A lot of the work has been through my connections and people I know. So that's the second thing. And also you've got to be good at what you do to get referrals and to get repeat business. So the craft then became the 3rd element. And that's all it took. I didn't look up any information. I just sat with the question and I came up with that. And I actually like the fact that it was 3C, so you can get a bit fancy with it, but you don't have to have alliteration. It's just something I obviously love. The scenic route in the book, again, both of these are really spelt out in detail, is actually just brain dumping everything you can related to that. So just writing all these ideas, you might even want to mind map them, see what the connections are. And then if possible, so spend about 10 minutes doing that, walk away for 10 minutes, come back, write for another 10 minutes. Then you want to start classifying that and see if you can find, again, 3 overarching themes. 3 is a good number. If it's 4, go for 4, but I like 3. And we work with 3 in the book as well. So that's really the process of just finding out what are these umbrella topics? What's most important to get this result? And really think about that and draft it out. Now you might have these 3 things, and there's 2 different ways that you can classify these. And I give examples in the book as well in terms of different types of frameworks using the number 3. So if it's a step-by-step process, so you need to do this first, then this, which is the SPARK framework in the book, right? It goes from the setup through to the K, which is the keep part. So that's a linear framework. I think the Strengths Finder has name, claim, and aim, right? That's a linear framework. First, you got to know what your strengths are. You got to name them. Then you got to claim them. So how do your strengths play out every day? That's step 2. And then you aim them. How do you aim your strengths, right? So that's a linear way. Ingredients, which is Booked Out Facilitator, you need all 3 things to book out. Or I can even represent it as buckets because you need all 3 things. And if you have one empty, you need to actually fill it up in order to book out, right? So there's the analogy. And I got that idea from Jonathan Fields. He uses the 3 good life buckets in his book, How to Live a Good Life. And then once you have an idea of if it's linear or if it's ingredient, so the best way is, do I need to do this before this? Is it a process that I need to follow in a linear way? Then you've got a linear framework. And if it's just, okay, you just need these 3 things or a combination of things, then it's an ingredients framework. And then you just create it, draw it, see which one works, just have fun with it, draw it out, see which one resonates. Again, all of this is done just to package it, to make it more memorable. That's what I actually love about this one. It rhymes, so that's really cool. So you can probably use ChatGPT as well to think of what can I call this so that the words in this process actually rhyme or get alliteration. I'm getting very excited here about this. Okay. And like I said, you don't need to have 3 things. So in the book, I've got the SPARK framework. That's actually 5 things. You can do a 2x2. If I had a 2x2, I could say, which quadrant are you in right now? Which one do you want to be in? Do you know someone in this quadrant? Just to unlock that. What would it take for you to get to here? Where are you on these steps right now? What will keep you here? What is preventing you from getting there? So this is why I love frameworks, because there's so many different types of questions that work beautifully in a workshop format. Back to what I said before. So just to recap the value of this, and this was a very high level overview. Again, I write more about it in the book, but really the framework is there to help you get faster at designing workshops and not overthink questions, because it all relates into the framework that you've created. And then it's a great experience for your group because what you're sharing is more memorable as well. Okay, let me know how you go with designing your frameworks. I'm so keen to hear from you. Email me hello@leannehughes.com or upload a photo of your framework to social media and just tag to, that's a two, actually write it here, hashtag to our workshop. Happy workshopping. See you on video 2.